Yes, no problem.
Good evening. I'd like to call the council meeting to order for the city of Freeport, April 25th, 2024. Please stand for invocation and pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord, and we thank you for bringing us all together. Please guide us and direct us as we make the best decisions for our community. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome to tonight's meeting. First, we have the consent agenda under tab 1 of the bills for the city of Freeport. Under tab 2 is the revenue and expenditure report through March of 2024. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? If not, I'll ask the council for approval.
So moved.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Councilwoman Hafner,
Aye.
Councilman Day,
Aye.
Councilman Ferris,
Aye.
Councilwoman Brennan,
Aye.
and Councilman Dickey.
Aye.
Motion carried. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
I'd like to have,
Yes.
passed out the Bruce Walton Transportation minute
Okay,
and also the long range transportation and then the public comments. I'd like
Okay.
to have those two.
I have an add-on for garbage collection to talk about.
okay. Any more?
Yes, Parks has an addition for updates.
Anything else? I'd like a motion to approve the additions to tonight's agenda.
So moved.
I second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Councilwoman Hafner.
Aye.
Councilman Day.
Aye.
Councilman Ferris.
Aye.
Councilwoman Brennan.
Aye.
And Councilman Dickey.
Aye.
Motion carried. Financial audit report.
That's going to be our auditors, Warren Avery,
Okay,
Joe Bradley.
all right. Yes, sir.
Sign up. You're gonna have to go up a little bit. Good evening, my name is Joel Bradley, I'm an audit principal at Warren Avery. I'm the one who's responsible for overseeing the city's financial statement audit. Also here from Warren Avery is Kimmy Sara, back here. She's the in-charge auditor in the field. She comes out here on site and oversees the testing and interacts with Sarah and her team. And she's been in that role now for 3 years, and she does a fantastic job. So before I get started, I just want to point out that the presentation tonight will be slightly different than what you've seen in the past. I hope you find the information to be more useful and interesting than the boilerplate audit presentation that you've seen in the past. All right. So the first slide, this one is a little boilerplate, so I do have to get it out of the way as required. This is just, I want to talk about the audit results. Our opinion on the financial statements is what's called unmodified. And that means that in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the United States generally accepted accounting principles. It's the highest level of assurance we can give. It's a clean opinion. Absolutely what the city is after from us. Professional auditing standards also require us to communicate to the council any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the city's internal controls or material instances of non-compliance. I'm happy to report that there were no such deficiencies in internal controls or material instances of non-compliance that we uncovered during our audit. Finally, the changes in accounting principles during the year, GASB puts out new accounting and reporting standards from time to time. One of the ones that they put out this year that the city had to implement is GASB statement number 96. Relates to subscription-based information technology arrangements. The city had no contracts in our testing that we found that met the definition of the SBITA, and so there were no significant impacts from the adoption of this standard. So I have done these presentations several times. And the one question that seems to come up again and again from every governing body I present to is, how do we stack up against other municipalities? I'd like to see some comparatives. So this slide here includes the comparative data on neighboring municipalities because, you know, it's human nature. We tend to judge performance relative to those around us. And I will explain what these metrics mean throughout the presentation. But the primary purpose of this slide is to kind of illustrate that the neighboring municipalities are not necessarily the best benchmark for evaluating the city's financial performance. To use a boxing analogy, the city is not fighting in the same weight class as most of the neighboring municipalities. For example, the city of Destin has a $6 billion property tax base, whereas the city of Freeport has a $600 million property tax basis. That's about, 10 times the property tax base in Destin that Freeport has. In addition, Destin doesn't even have enterprise fund activities. There's no water and sewer fund, there's no sanitation, nothing like that. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Defuniak Springs. It has less than half the property tax base of Freeport, but somehow expends twice as much as the city of Freeport does. So once again, not necessarily a great benchmark for evaluating how the city's doing. So for the purposes of benchmarking the city's performance, it's typically more useful to compare it to municipalities with similar attributes. So these are all the municipalities in Florida during fiscal year 22 that have both governmental and enterprise funds. They have populations between 5,000 and 11,000, and they have taxable property bases between 545 million and 850 million. These municipalities can essentially be thought of as peers to the city of Freeport from a financial resource and operations standpoint. So, I just want to point out what a few of these metrics mean, and I will address them all throughout the presentation. But the first one there that you kind of see near the top of the page is millage rate sensitivity. I just want to define what that is. That is basically the additional property tax revenues that would be generated by increasing the millage rate by 1/10 of a point. So the city of Freeport's millage rate is 4.7302. If you were to raise it to 4.8302, it would generate another $80,000 approximately in property tax revenues. So this is obviously a function of the assessed value of taxable property and the millage rate, and it provides information on a municipality's capacity to levy taxes on its taxpayers. The next one I'd like to talk about real quickly is just the enterprise funds operating profit ratio, which is the bottom metric there. So this, enterprise funds are defined in governmental accounting standards as self-sustaining. That's what they're intended to be. When they are self-sustaining, they can help supplement some of the governmental activities. However, when they're not self-sustaining, when they're performing poorly, government may have to use reserves, issue new debt, or significantly increase fees in order to get them back to a self-sustaining standpoint. So as you can see for Freeport in FY23 and FY22, both years, it was remarkably consistent performance, about 10% of operating profit ratio there. So that's very healthy compared to most others. So then, one thing I do want to point out here is that so, Freeport has more outstanding debt and outstanding debt per capita than most of its peers, but this is a little bit misleading. Because the city of Freeport is still in a high growth stage of its development cycle. Over the previous 10-year period, Freeport's property tax base has increased by 255%. And its population has also increased by 216% over that same time period. That's astounding growth. The There's only one other municipality on this list that's even close from a standpoint of growth to the city of Freeport. And that's Davenport, which is on the far right-hand side of the table there. So given, that can't compare it to the local ones, and even the ones that have the same resources and operations aren't necessarily in the same stage of growth, it kind of, how do we evaluate performance? So this now is a 10-year historical trend data for just the city of Freeport. So in these instances, it may be useful to just look at the city's performance over time to see trends that could potentially impact the city's ability to meet its primary objective of providing services to citizens. So I'm going to get into, I've got 4 graphs here that follow, and I'll explain what each of these means. So this one here shows assessed value of taxable property per capita or per resident. Typically, the cost of providing services to residents is more directly correlated with the number of residents than the value of property. I mean, you're providing services to citizens, not to property. So, in Florida especially, there's no difference between residential and commercial millage rates. You get taxed at the same rate regardless of, whether you're a city or whether you are a residential unit or a commercial unit or whatever type of property it is. So increases in this ratio over time indicate that property values are increasing at a faster rate than the population, which obviously, I will note that the graph looks the same from 2021 to 2023 for a lot of other municipalities, as property values in this area have skyrocketed since the COVID-19 pandemic. And so that trend, I would expect to see kind of level off in the future, but that gives you some great information on the capacity of the, how high the property values are here and the ability to levy taxes on residents. So this next one is long-term debt per capita. This is basically the long-term debt divided by the number of residents who live here. So this is a concept that pretty much everyone can understand. The more debt per resident a city has, the less flexibility it has to determine how to use its resources. So, despite the fact that long-term debt outstanding at the end of 2023 is 18.2 million more than it was 10 years ago, it's actually less per resident than it was back then, which, I know that number is kind of astounding, but that just tells you how much population growth there has been here in the last 10 years. For governments in the growth stages of the development cycle, it's not out of the ordinary to incur higher than average levels of debt to construct the infrastructure necessary to facilitate future growth. This metric will typically decrease once infrastructure has been constructed and the population growth begins to curtail in the future. This metric is months of cash investments for only the governmental funds, so throw out your water and your sewer fund. We're just talking about the governmental activities here. It's basically, the number of months, given the current levels of spending, that the government could continue with if another dollar didn't come through the door. And as you can see, this number has been climbing and climbing. It basically indicates a municipality's ability to withstand financial emergencies or fund capital purchases without having to borrow. The general rule of thumb is that a municipality should never let this number get below 3 months. Well, Freeport's at 41 months at the end of FY23. The gradual increase over time is attributable to a few factors. One is the increase in property tax revenues, which is about 363% over the 10-year period. Every year, the increase, the city receives a refund of the small county surtax proceeds from the county after they use it for the landfill costs. They return a portion of it back to the city. That number has been going up and up and up at a very high rate over the last few years. In addition, fire protection activities were turned over to the county in 2015. And then the city received over $1 million of American Rescue Plan grant proceeds that still have not yet been expended, and these were received due to the COVID pandemic. I just wanted to point this out, it's something worth monitoring, due to the perceptions of taxpayers. And, I audit 8 municipalities in the area, and some of them have seen a lot of grassroots political movements lately to try to cut taxes. So it's just something that I wanted to point out and make everybody aware of. This is the last graph that I have. It's basically the non-capital expenditures per person, also in governmental funds, no water, no sewer. It's basically how much money is being spent per resident. Typically when this is going up, it can indicate problems with being able to maintain levels of spending. That's not the problem that the city of Freeport has at this point. It's actually a very healthy ratio. This analysis can be further disaggregated by function to examine at a more detailed level. So if you were to compare, for example, like culture and recreation expenditures to this trend and see where it deviates, you can kind of see where some things maybe require some further analysis. But it's also useful to know what kind of services each municipality is providing. For example, Freeport does not have a police department or perform fire protection activities, so all things being equal, if you were to compare it to a municipality that does have those things, it's going to spend less money per person than those. This is also a trend to monitor given the substantial increase in cash reserves over the previous period. But some of the key takeaways from what I've just, kind of pointed out here are that given the ratio of months in cash and investments for the governmental funds, the city is better positioned to withstand financial emergencies than most other municipalities that we've looked at due to its very healthy level of reserves. And most of those reserves are available for spending at the council's discretion. There aren't a lot of strings with how that money has to be spent. In addition, the city is definitely in a better place to take on additional debt in the future to continue building infrastructure because of these healthy reserves. So that, there is no such thing as a perfect metric at all. There's understanding the context behind what it's telling you is everything, and you can't, this is kind of a 10,000 foot view. So drilling down further and further can provide even better and better information. But, the goal of this presentation was to provide you guys with some value, and I hope that that is what I've accomplished here tonight. Are there any questions?
Anybody have anything?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I'd like to quickly just direct a special thank you to Ms. Sarah Bowers and her finance department team. Most people don't realize the time commitment required to compile the information for us auditors each year. I mean, we're a real pain. And we got the audit out a full month earlier than what we did last year. And that's a big part to Sarah and her team. So it's truly a pleasure to serve the city of Freeport, and we hope to do so for many more years. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
so much.
And thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, parks update.
Sarah, you did not need a motion or acceptance of that. Sarah, you didn't want to be accept that report.
I don't know, I mean, this
I
is,
don't know we've ever
everything
done
is
that
done by
before.
law, and I think it's beyond, I apologize, but Auditor General and everybody else.
I don't think, I don't know it's required, but since it was not specifically listed on the public agenda, I want to make sure we didn't need to bring it back for a letter of approval.
It was on the agenda there, Clay, in the middle.
Oh, it's number 9. You're right.
Yes.
I didn't see it as a separate tab.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see the tab.
No
It's
worries.
right there on the.
It looks like, yeah, they put it.
Parks,
I was looking under finance. It's up there.
Evening, Council Mayor. I just want to give you an update at the parks that May 1st, we're going to be opening our splash pad. I've been getting a lot of phone calls asking when the splash pad is going to open up, so May 1st, put that out to the public, so.
That's great.
Thank you, and that's it.
Thank you.
City manager?
Good evening, council. Quick, I guess, update slash talk about. Yesterday afternoon, late, I received a call from Billy McKee with the county to inform the city that the county has informed the waste management that they are going to go out for bid on their contract for waste pickup, garbage pickup. So we currently piggyback with them, although there are some nuances and we didn't get way down into the details. But just like in Freeport, there are some streets that get 2 pickups and some streets that only get 1 pickup and all that. So one of the things that he did discuss, if we choose to piggyback with them, is that they're going to try and work through that so everything will be more the same. Other than that, unless Clay has anything to add, I guess I just need some direction to go back to them and say we want to piggyback.
Well, I would not recommend piggybacking franchises. I think we would work hand in hand. They're issuing a public procurement. There's obviously quite some time with that. You have your own separate franchise, collect your own separate franchise fee. If you opt to piggyback, I believe you'd be precluded from collecting that fee. It does not mean that the city could not look at running a parallel public procurement or looking at negotiating a public procurement based off the county's ultimate determinations. But I would be very reluctant to just say we'll simply piggyback on their full public procurement for our franchise territory for risk of not being able to collect the franchise fee.
Bad choice of word on my part. He did say, well, obviously we have our own area and we could do whatever we wanted. He just wanted to know if we wanted to work with them as a part of it.
And I think that would be advisable to discuss that matter, but I don't think you want to be their full public procurement.
I was thinking it was more, is the county are we able to negotiate a better rate if even though we're separate, if we're all negotiating together at the same time?
I think that's something that could be discussed as part of the
that's what I
development of public
thought.
procurement, if you wish to have that kind of conversation. Because obviously we are in a non-renewal month-to-month
Correct.
agreement right now, so we've said before, at some point, we're gonna need to redo it, to have an exclusive
Correct.
franchise to be compliant. Now's as good a time to talk about that as anything. So I think the general direction of Mr. Martin to explore how Freeport's franchise would be handled in comparison with what the county's doing would be the prudent decision, without deferring it to them. We need it interlocal to do that either way.
Councilwoman Brandon?
I personally would like to see, Mark, for you to get all of the information. What if we do this? What if we do this? And then bring it back and have it on the agenda. So when it's on the agenda, the public can come in and see it, because this was added on and this is huge for us. This is a big thing. So I think we really need a lot of study up and decide what we're going to do. I think I would like to do it that way.
Okay.
Just me personally.
Sounds good. Do we need a motion for that?
No, that's general direction of this
Okay.
one.
Get on it.
Okay. Planning.
Good evening, council. I'm gonna have to move it down, I'm not as tall, sorry. The first item that I have for you on the agenda is a rezoning application for the cruise. They are, however, asking to continue this item. Some points were brought up, there was a lot of discussion at the planning board meeting, and they're making some changes to the plans before it comes to you. So with your approval, I'd like to continue that to the May 14th meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Motion been made and seconded in discussion. Councilman Hafner?
Aye.
Councilman Day? Councilman Ferris?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brandon?
Aye.
And Councilman Dickey?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The second item I have was for the New Deal townhomes. That is major development. It was required by Walton County during the technical review that they have only a right-in, right-out access onto Business 331. We are currently in the planning department working with the county to try to find an alternative solution to that. And based on that, I'd like to ask for a little bit more time if we could continue this to May 14th as well.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Bless you.
Any public comment? Councilwoman Hafner?
Aye.
Councilman Day?
Aye.
Councilman Ferris?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Dickey?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you again. The last item I have for you today is the Outside North PDP amendment.
Who's going to speak first, the engineer?
This is an amendment of the original Owl's Head PDP resolution that was done in 2006. It is this whole property is 1,037 acres in the original PDP. This only affects 304.06 acres of the property. Since the original PDP, there have been some ownership changes, and based on that, this is a two-part. They're asking for a few different things on this. First of all, they would like to redesignate that 304.06 acres as Owl's Head North to differentiate it from Owl's Head PDP. The second thing they're asking to do is to reduce the vested commercial rights from their portion of the original PDP and increase instead the residential units for that property. This is the location of the site in question. It is located just south and to the east of the intersection of 331 and Business 331. This is a summary of the changes that they're asking for their entitlements. They previously were entitled to 679 residential units. They're requesting that be increased to 817 residential units. But at the same time, they are reducing their office, commercial, and hotel and amenity that they had entitled in order to offset that somewhat. They are also adding a warehouse and garage accessory amenity for the residents of the PDP. This kind of gives you the current plan. And then I'm going to show you a blow-up of the residential unit use breakdown there. If you'll move the next page. There we go. We currently have under review phases 1D, 1E, and 1F of Owl's Head. Once those are through the review phase, that will use up all of their current entitlements for residential property. They are asking for this increase in residential units in order to allow for a future phase 1G that they hope to submit. Do you have any questions for me on this information before I turn it over to the engineer to give you some more information? I'd like to introduce Jim Martelli with Interlight Engineering.
Thank you, Samantha. Excuse me. I'm not sure I have to say much at this point, but Mayor Barley, thank you for having us, me this evening, and council members, thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Jim Martelli with Interlight Engineering. I'm the professional engineer on this project and representing the applicant, which is Freeport Land Partners, LLC. I've had the pleasure to be working on Owl's Head since 2007. So I've been involved with the project quite a while now, and also with Ms. Latilda along the way, just before Samantha joined the team. So I have a lot of knowledge here, but this is the original Owl's Head Plan Development Project, the original Owl's Head neighborhood. As Samantha mentioned, the original approval was in 2006. It was for 1,000 plus acres and 3,500 residential units. In 2009, there was an option piece that was never settled on. So the 2009 amendment was in essence to reduce the area of the PDP and commensurately reduce the development program. And so right now, the overall PDP is approved for 1,865 residential units. There's been some property swaps and some change of hands of the property over the last 3 or 4 years. When the dust settled, there were two entities that owned the entitlement rights. There's the northern piece, which is the 304 acres we're talking about tonight. And there's also a southern piece owned by Owl's Head Residential LLC. And that's a little over 500 acres. So commensurately, as Samantha mentioned, right now there's an approved 679 residential units for the Freeport Land Partners 304 acres, along with 18,200 square feet of office, 36,400 square foot of commercial, and 91 hotel rooms with 14,580 square foot of convention space. So what they're asking to do, and I'll talk about the site plan in a minute, is to reduce commercial, reduce office, and reduce the hotel for the main reason because the remaining developable area of this 304 acres is conducive for residential. It's really not conducive for commercials. It's on the east side of the beautiful amenity lake that's out there, and also on the little bit on the south side, and it is in the undeveloped portions of the property. So they are asking to reduce those elements, the commercial elements, and to increase the residential by 138 single-family units. So the request is to amend the PDP. There's a couple of different parts I would, if you'd be kind enough to allow me to clarify. The first one is pretty clear. We would like to, and a lot of this, by the way, is for accounting purposes and for the planning staff to have a simpler base file, if you will, set of codes and instructions to review this particular 304 acres from. So a lot of these requests are sort of based on that, but the first one is to redesignate this area as Owl's Head North PDP. The second one I just talked about is to reallocate some commercial and office and hotel over to residential. And the third one is just as important. There was a lot of planning that went into the original approvals here, lots of consultants, lots of public hearings, that type of thing. And there was a design code that was created for this neighborhood. And it's about 80 pages, it's pretty sophisticated. And we just wanted to make sure that that continues to be brought forth in this amendment as well, to incorporate that existing design code into the record or into the approval. And the second thing is, and we'll go through these exhibits quickly, we've prepared, and relied our firm, a design code supplement. And the main reason for that is the remaining developable area that you saw just a little earlier is our townhomes and single family. Most everything else is developed or will be developed soon. And so we wanted to give the planning staff a really good cookbook, if you will, to be able to go through and review when we go to the technical review stage. So that would be the regulating plan supplement that has 5 sheets to it. And I'll be glad to go through those briefly with you as well. So this is sheet 1, and I'd like to point out the area that you see, this right here is the 304 acres, this area up here. And the faded back portion, that's existing Owl's Head. That's either been constructed, and there's some houses up there, or over here on the east side, there's a little bit left of some of the roads to put in, but there's a lot of underground infrastructure already in place, so there are no plans to modify that one bit. That will remain as is. The colored area that you see right here is sort of the new part of the master plan, or an updated version of the master plan within the undeveloped areas. And so what you see here is a curvilinear road network, and the green represents wetlands and buffers. And as you can see, we don't have one wetland impact In fact, in a lot of places, we're pretty far away from the buffer, so it's beautiful property, beautiful uplands. This particular plan does not jam as many units as we can possibly get in here. It is conscious of what surrounds us, so that's what you see here. This layout also accounts for those additional 138 units, which are basically phase 1B here. If you, Ms. County? Yes. So this is sort of, I guess you'd call it a cheat sheet for the planning staff when the time comes. And we sort of carved out what we expect to be our imminent phases to be developed and the type of product that we're going to put in there. On the left over here is a row house. This is a single-family residential house, and that's a little larger single-family residential house. This is 50-foot wide, that's 60-foot wide. One of the things this schematic does, it helps establish very clearly what the setbacks are. We have a 5-foot side setback as part of this application, a 15-foot rear, and we are doing a 20-foot front setback, even though I think the city does allow 15 there. So we're asking for this. And one thing I did want to point out too, on this length of lot, the package you have may show 120 feet in there. That was just meant to show a snapshot of a particular lot. But as you know, the city doesn't regulate depths of lots, so some of them might be 100, some of them might be 150. So we went ahead and just modified this particular text right there to say depth varies on that. And I have given a copy of that to the clerk here for the record. So we would, I just wanted to point that out and include it as part of the record in my presentation tonight. And then the last thing, I don't know if we have to go through the other sheets, if you just want to go to 0, which is the one that Samantha had up a little earlier.
Which one, number 3?
The first one.
The 0. No, the 0.
This one?
The one just before
No, the
that.
one that says 0, the first
Oh,
one.
the master one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this is just a blow up of the layout so you can see it a little better. And as I mentioned a little earlier, this is no change to the existing Owl's Head neighborhood. This is the undeveloped portion. All this was already within the PDP, and this is just a new area, just to give you a little bit better look on it. So, as a recap, so the request is to redesignate the name to Owl's Head North PDP, to reallocate from commercial to residential to get another 138 residential units and significantly reduce the commercial and office and hotel, to incorporate the design code in the supplement drawings, and also to approve this new and improved, up-to-date concept plan, which obviously generalized will vary slightly in final design based on civil engineering design. But will generally look pretty close to that. Funny thing is we actually have already designed it and it looks pretty close to that. So short of that, I would like to thank the planning staff again and appreciate their efforts and their partnership to help us get here to where we are tonight. Appreciate the commission and council very much. And would respectfully ask for your approval on this, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you might have of me.
Any questions, anyone? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that the developer is asking if you approve these changes that we do so by resolution.
What are we going to do?
I have a question.
Councilwoman Brandon?
Okay, so let's get this straight. We have a PDP for a very large 1,000-acre parcel.
Correct.
They've split it in half,
Sort of.
kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay. They're wanting to do more on this, less on this, you know, all these different categories. So are we going to, how are we going to regulate what they're allowed to do? We know what they're allowed to do now, but what if Owl's Head South comes in and they want to switch everything around too? I mean, they have a certain amount. Are we going to take those numbers
So
and
what-
match them with the bottom two? I mean,
They took their original, as part of their split,
Okay.
when they did it, they, correct me if I misstate this, they percentaged out who got how much of what. We have the totals, and it was divided. We've already had that in-house as to how much went with the north and how much went with the south. So we already have the records of how they're split. There's not going to be a chance for double dipping.
so the South isn't gonna come in and say, okay, we want 10 times more residential and no commercial, because I always thought 331 was gonna be mostly commercial through there.
And when they split it, most of the undeveloped commercial categories, as far as on 331, went with the south.
Okay,
The property that we're looking at here is all off of 331. It's back in the back, and that's why it's not really a good location for commercial.
okay,
It's behind all of the residential,
okay.
which would not be
But
very
you're
planning.
keeping up with the numbers, and we're not gonna have Owl's Head South come in and change everything up, and,
They,
you
I
know,
guess
we
they could
can't.
always ask you to, but
Mhm.
they're not gonna, we know how much they have left.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes,
Yeah, I was
absolutely.
thinking the same thing.
Absolutely.
They're not going over their numbers of.
The allotted amount.
GDP
They
because
can't.
they're swapping things. Okay.
We required them to immortalize that in a document to us that's in the main file. We all have a copy of it in our zoning book.
Okay.
We know exactly who gets
I
what.
have
And
the
as
same
each-
thought.
as each,
I have the same question.
Phase is developed, we take it off the top.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So what do we need to do, Clay?
So we need a
We need a
motion.
motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution. I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the resolution. Is there any discussion? Any public comment? Councilwoman Hafner.
Aye.
Councilman Day.
Aye.
Councilman Ferris.
Aye.
Councilwoman Brennan.
Aye.
And Councilman Dickey.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay.
It is 2024-02.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Claims tag team tonight. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, you have the Freeport Rural Corridor Plan for Walton County. This, if you recall, some of you may remember, and some of you may not remember, and it's been a while, that back in June 23rd of 2002, Ms. Lee Moore, who is here tonight, came before the council. They did a Scenic Walton program, and they asked for the opportunity to partner with the city. And what they wanted to do was, through their own funding, come up with a landscaping plan for a project with the city for our corridors, our gateways, the north end, the south end, the east end, the west end. And at that time, the council approved for staff to collaborate with Scenic Walton. Well, what we decided was that the most impactful landscape area that we could do would be the gateway to the city to the north, where all of our visitors and all of our tourists, when they first come to Freeport, that's the first thing they're going to see. So I had many meetings with Ms. Lee. I had many teams and phone call meetings with their landscape architect, where they worked directly from the landscaping portion of our land development code and came up with a plan that has more than 60% native and drought tolerant species. There you'll see a lot of grasses and shrubs that do very well in the Florida heat. And I can tell you, having reviewed this very thoroughly, that it absolutely meets the requirements of the Freeport Land Development Code. It's going to be very natural. It kind of flows from one end, it gets heavier as you get toward the light, and then it flows back down. But it's going to add some really beautiful landscaping throughout that area that's going to be extremely low maintenance. It's huge. Poor Kathy. I gave her this. It was a monster plan. It really doesn't translate to get smaller than 11 by 17, so we included it as an attachment in your document. It is in color, and you can see on this just how the landscaping goes. There's some areas where it'll be in the center and other areas it will come down the side. At this point, I think it's a beautiful plan, and I would like for the city to review, approve for us to move forward with Scenic Walton, but some things would have to happen. First of all, you would have to agree that you would like to have this landscaping plan. And then the secondary portion is the actual cost of installation of the landscaping. Now, what I would like to do is get some quotes from various landscapers on what it would cost to put in this landscaping. And if the cost isn't too significant and we have the money available in our mitigation funds and the monies that planning collects, and people have to do buyouts and things, we would bring it back to you with the quotes, a recommendation on which quote to take and the source of income. If the cost of it is a little too expensive for us to do through our mitigation funds, then we would ask you at that time to allow us to make that part of our budget request as a specific line item for funding, so that we can take the money we have plus some additional funding and actually install this. I'd like for Ms. Lee to come up this time and talk to you about the process on their side of this, but we're really happy to have this beautiful, beautiful plan to show you, but I'll give her a chance to speak. Come on, Lee.
Thank you, Priscilla. And thank you, Council and Mayor. So, look, I know it has been a bit. We've had some delays with this program in general, not just that have impacted this project. COVID obviously was in the mix, and I've had a pretty significant family medical issue that took me away for the better part of the year. And so I apologize that it's taken a bit to start really coming to fruition, but we're excited about it. It's been great working with Latilda. And we really do want to get feedback. Latilda's given us feedback. If you have any feedback about the plans, we need it, because one of the next steps is to send this to FDOT for their review. Since it is on a state facility, they will have to approve it. We believe it meets their specifications, but we obviously have to ensure that by having them review it. But we wanted to get all the city's feedback first. So this program is working out really well so far. It basically allows us to fit into places where we can help local government get projects done that they either might not have been able to get done before or get them done much more quickly. And so we feel like hopefully this plan really opens some things up and moves some things along for you all as a city to be able to do this. And we have a good designer. I think Latilda would back that up. We're very cognizant. I'll say this, and I might have said this when I spoke to you years ago, that since we decided to expand our geographic reach to the full county, one of the things that people have said is, we don't want y'all coming up here and trying to make us look like South Walton. And I think you can see because we've worked on most of the major landscape plans that have happened on the roadways in South Walton as well. And you can see this is different. We try to, when we get involved in projects in different areas of the county, we want what we're trying to help with to fit and to make sense for that community, that area. And we feel like this really does. So I hope you feel the same. We're open again to any feedback and suggestions for changes to the plan. We have the designer waiting in the wings for any adjustments that he might need to make. And we're just excited. Hope we can, and we want to help moving forward too, as Latilda was talking about with cost of construction. If there are any applications, grant applications we could assist with, or letters of support we can write, or anything that we might need to do, we're happy to do that as well. So I think anything else you wanted to
I would just say this plan was done at no cost to the city.
Yeah. Yeah, we're funding the plan, and we're funding it through, and this is part of an overall program called Walton Safe and Beautiful. We've funded at this point, or in process on 4 designs, 3 of which are north of the bay, and this is one of them. And we are funding it through, at this point, donations from the St. Joe Community Foundation. They love this program and are supportive, and so we continue to raise funds every year for the program and want to do more and more designs throughout the county for different projects. So far, we've only done landscape projects. We're pretty interested in maybe getting involved in some pedestrian and cyclist projects as well that we might be able to help with designs for, to get these accelerated or expedited for different high-need pedestrian and cyclist projects as well. So,
Councilwoman Brandon?
I love the plan. Looking through it, I can just picture seeing wildflowers all up and down the roadways and the red maples and the trees. And I love how you did the intersections here, because I was really scared at first that there would be trees that you wouldn't be able to see in or out. I love how you stayed far back and just put mostly wildflowers through there. So, I mean, I really like it. I think it's really nice just looking through here. It looks great.
If this goes well, then we get this project complete, and Lee and her group are willing to work with us on doing something for the south end. And then maybe eventually on the east end, we could do something, and then on the west end. But having our gateways be really beautiful, you've heard me say this before, Freeport's a very special place. We want to add layer upon layer of polish to what we have. We want to just keep adding more and more things to make it even more beautiful and special.
So on 331, where does this project begin?
At the very north end of the city, it goes down to just around the traffic light, the very north end of Owl's Head, and that area there. It'll be landscaping right there as you're coming directly into the city. So the first thing the tourists will see when they come into the city is this beautiful landscaping while they're getting to the light.
And how far down south?
If you look at the plan, it sort of tapers off just below the light. It's just below the light.
331?
331 light.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody else?
Great job.
So first, I need you to approve me to move forward with the project. I will get this submitted to DOT. Lee will assist with anything we need to do with that and get it for the DOT for approval. And then once I get that done, without you having to tell me, I'm going to get quotes. And we're going to find out how much this thing is going to cost us. And then I'll come back to you with a variety of funding options. So you will see this again, but I will bring you that information back after I've had a chance to get DOT approval, get the quotes, and then tell you where the funding source is.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Public comment?
You just said it's zero cost to the city, and then you just said.
The development of this plan was zero cost to the city. But we have to pay for the landscaping to put it in. We have to buy the trees.
Any other public comment? Councilwoman Hafner?
Aye.
Councilman Day?
Aye.
Councilman Ferris?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brannan?
Aye.
And Councilman Dickey?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
all very much. Appreciate it.
We'll be talking later.
Yes, we will.
Thank you for that. The next item that I have before you, let me check, I've got a lot. I didn't mean for it to be the planning show, but that's how it turned out. Oh, next item is under tab 8. This is the second and final reading of the Land Development Code revisions. You have the ordinance in your packet. We've gone over this in great detail before. It was advertised as required, and I am requesting that the City Council hold the adoption hearing at this time and assign an ordinance number.
I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Councilwoman Hafner.
Aye.
Councilman Day. Councilman Ferris.
Aye.
Councilwoman Brennan.
Aye.
And Councilman Dickey.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And this is ordinance number,
2024-03. My cheat sheet is covered by all your planning documents.
I understand, sir, I apologize.
You said
An
zero.
ordinance amending
There
the
was so much
Freeport
room.
Land Development Code,
Zero
Article
three.
1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 5, Appendix A-1, Appendix A-2, Appendix B, and Appendix C, providing for authority and purpose, conflict severability, and effective date. And just as an update to you, as you know, it is my practice to update our land development code as issues arise. We already have a couple of things that we need to look at for our next set of revisions. Just in the past several weeks, in talks with engineering and with legal, we have found that the capacity fee table in our land development code has some anomalies that need to be worked out. The table that we adopted to calculate capacity fees, some of the uses are not really clear. They don't give us enough direction to clearly direct how to calculate certain things. And there are words and phrases in there and references to other things that are not part of this code. I would like to work with legal and with engineering to work on that capacity chart and get those things up to date so that we don't have any further problems. There are just some things as we use it, and as with any ordinance, you find problems and it has to be addressed. The other thing that we need to address is reclaimed water. We have one small reference to reclaimed water in our technical standards manual where it's more like we encourage people to prepare for reclaimed water. Well, we're at a situation now, we have a brand new plant out at Earl Godwin Road, which has a reclaimed water facility. The RFQ that we're working on right now, the new plant that we're working on for Bulldog Road will also have a reclaimed water facility, and it's time for the city to set up some guidelines and some basic instructions on how development can connect and obtain this reclaimed water for reuse for landscaping within their development, and the kind of lines they would have to lay and where, so that we can use that reclaimed water so that the capacity in our plant stays at a reasonable level. There's no reason for us to have reclaimed water if it isn't going somewhere and being used. So those are the two issues that I plan to address. If something crosses your mind that you say, I think this is a problem and I want you to look at it, you just shoot me a text, an email, give me a call, drop in and say, don't forget we need to do X. I will be happy to address it this next set. This is a never-ending cycle. You know I do this every year. I want our land development code to be as up-to-date as it possibly can. And thank you for that. I just wanted to give you that little update.
Thank you.
The next item that I have is really kind of a heartfelt one. You all know that Mr. Alan Fannin, who was a member of this community, passed away very recently. Some of you are very much aware, others may not be as aware, how integral he was to Freeport Little League, Freeport Baseball, minors, majors, and I've had a number of people come into my office talking about not only what a great coach he was, but how he really took an interest in the kids that he coached, boys, especially boys who did not possibly have a father figure or who needed a little extra help, and he really went out of his way to help them. Now, I knew Coach Fannin, and Coach Fannin was not an easy person to know. He was very attitudinal, he was very gruff, but he had a soft spot for the children, much like this councilman sitting right here. It was always about the kids. So, in order to do something about that, I wanted to ask you guys, if it's okay with you, I wouldn't do this without asking, I would like to have a plaque made that we hang on the home dugout of Field 3, where Mr. Fannin, Coach Fannin, coached many games. And it'd be a very, very simple plaque. And if you wanted to do something to have the family there when it's presented and all, I think that would be very lovely and touching. But basically, this is the language we've come up with, and if it's acceptable to you guys, then I can get my staff to look at getting an acceptable plaque that's weatherproof, that can be hung on the home dugout. And it would basically say, hang on a minute. Coach Alan Fannin, in cherished memory of a man who coached countless young minds in Freeport on the values of sportsmanship, hard work, and integrity. May his influence and guiding principles continue to shine through on these fields and on all the young athletes of our community. And I guess I need a motion from the council to be able to have a plaque made, and then I will turn it over to Mayor Barley, and if he wanted to do something ceremonial with that, that of course would be his prerogative.
Well, I will make that motion to have that plaque made.
Thank you.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Any public comment? The only thing is I want to tell you is I think it's A-L-L-E-N.
A-L-L-E-N? Yes. I'll check on that.
I'm pretty sure.
I think it is.
I went to school with him.
Did you?
Yeah. Any public comment? Councilwoman Hafner?
Aye.
Councilman Day?
Aye.
Councilman Ferris?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brandon?
Aye.
Councilman Dickey?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And the final item I have tonight is an asset deletion request. Several years ago, actually about 4 years ago, a unused scanner was donated to my department. It is out of date. It cannot be hooked up to anything we have. The technology that makes it run is not even available anymore, and we're asking approval to surplus this item.
I make that motion.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Any public comment? Councilwoman Hafner?
Aye.
Councilman Day? Councilman Ferris?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brandon?
Aye.
And Councilman Dickey?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much, council. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Legal.
Mark, are you gonna jump in on front of me on something?
Well, just a couple of quick updates from today, actually. I'm gonna send you all tomorrow this email that I got from Dewberry about bidding out the cost of a .5 plant. So this is in relation to this Bulldog Road. I wanted to tell you about it before you read the email. Essentially, they've looked at the numbers, and because our original plan was to bid out a .5 and with a 2.0 headworks. So
Add
after
to it.
review of everything, you can read the numbers for yourself, but essentially, yes, it would cost more money to do a 1.0 and a 3.0 headworks, but it's minimal when you're talking about that. So that was their recommendation via this email, was for us to start with a 1 and a 3 instead of a half and a 2. So I'll send that to y'all tomorrow so you can see it for yourself. Secondly,
Let's go ahead on that, because we have talked about it a few times before. Let's go ahead, council, if you would, because that's gonna tie into what we're gonna talk about. And I think Mark had that authority, but I'd like it in the minutes somewhere, because we did award an RFQ on the design part of this, just so we have clear direction to our consulting engineer on this, that for us to move forward with the design of a 1 MGD wastewater treatment facility combined with 3 MGD headworks with no bid alternatives, which the old bid alternative would have been just for the half MGD. So can we have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Public comment?
And
Councilwoman?
Mayor, I'll have the record just so we have it in here, and y'all all get the email. But what we're dealing with here is a situation that the time for design and getting the permitting scope would be much longer and probably more costly if we asked them to do a 0.5 MGD with a bid alternate, or if we did the 0.5 plus the 1 MGD headworks. The cost would be very minimal difference to just do the 1 MGD and 3 MGD design at this time. The estimated cost, and we know these can go up, down, go all over the place, that was provided to us by Dewberry today, was that the 0.5 option would have been roughly 28 to 32 million. We're doing a full 1 MGD plus the 3 MGD how it works. Probably was going to be in the 35 to 40 million dollar range, which is what we've been estimating all along. So while you might save a little bit of money, you're immediately doubling your initial capacity and being able to stretch it from there.
And basically, the process would have to start all over. So if we did it at 0.5 and all the capacity gets eaten up based on the way things are now, we just have to go back out and, so, but I told them I'd bring it to y'all and that's that. Second thing, I did.
Wait, don't we need to take a vote?
Yeah, he needs to call the
Yeah.
vote. We
We've
didn't
done
finish.
it.
Yeah, I interrupted the mayor. He's about to call the vote.
That's
Sorry,
okay.
man.
Sorry.
No, it's okay, you're fine.
Hold that
Coun-
over.
Track of it.
Councilwoman
Want to
Hafner,
make sure I get this other part out.
Councilman Day,
Okay.
Councilman Ferris,
Aye.
Councilwoman Brannon,
Aye.
Councilman Dickey.
Aye.
Motion carried.
There you go.
Okay, so I talked with Uriah this morning. I've been asking him, Cliff and Matilda has sent via Uriah to Dale Marks with Eglin some property on the west side of 331 Business going up to basically the site C6 Road for our rib sites. Or spray fields, but rib sites take much less property. So I hadn't heard anything back. I pushed Uriah today. He actually called Mr. Marks, and Mr. Marks said that he felt very strongly that they would be able to look at 120, and he was having his people look at 120 acres in that area. So that's a maybe, at least. And so that's just an update.
Okay, good.
The pieces are falling together slowly. Now, Clay, I'm done.
All right, so I told Mark I'd put this under me. As the council knows, we've been looking at what we need to do for the Bulldog Road, or what we consider the north wastewater treatment plant. While we are nearing the end of completion, and we all say that hopefully knock on wood, that happens in the coming 2 to 3 months, of our current plant, we certainly know that our current plant was never meant to be a 10, 15, 20-year solution. And so the council, roughly at this point 3 years ago, went through the efforts of acquiring certain property up there on Bulldog Road to look at a future wastewater treatment plant. We've been exploring that. Obviously, the council knows it's gone out for design and permitting. We've learned before, obviously, design and permitting can be a lengthy process. We've similarly learned that if you're trying to go through USDA for financing, that they're only finance existing need, not future growth. That poses a bit of a problem. While USDA is a very good friend of the city and would love to finance us, this plant would have more future growth capacity needed in it than it necessarily would current day need. Because of that, we do not know that we would necessarily be eligible to pursue a USDA rural development financing when we need the plant, or when we want to have the plant online. I'll defer to Mark, but I think the goal would be, if we could have it in a perfect world, we'd like this plant to be coming online between 24 to 36 months out. Is that a fair take, Mark?
Yep. 3 years.
We're not gonna be out of capacity at 24, but if we don't do anything between now and 24 months, we're probably gonna be getting that notice from DEP that it's time to start putting your necks on the ground. Well, then you're 3 to 4 years out. So we've looked at a variety of options. Obviously, the council knows we've explored discussions to see what state funding options are available. Candidly, SRF, as y'all know, is just not gonna fund a 25, 35, $40 million plant. And also, do we have somebody from Blueberry? I guess we don't have somebody from Blueberry.
Cliff was here, but he left.
It'll have to be wandered out before I get to asking this. They advised, I'll tell you, I was at another meeting this week where they made a comment that SRF was doing more 50-50 loan grants than the 80-20s they have been. So that's a much less favorable program at this point in time, especially given the limited monies and the fact that we can get it for other things. So I've talked to Mark about it. We've looked at a variety of options, and I mentioned to Mark earlier this week, based on some other matters that I'm working on outside the city of Freeport, that currently we're looking at public and private bond offerings and bank qualified financings for cities tend to be trailing the current mortgage market, current rate market. Give you an example, I pulled some numbers for you. Florida Local Government Finance Program, which is a program administered by the Florida Association of Counties, their current published rates as of yesterday, April 24th, the 6-month average CP rate for tax-exempt financing was 3.61%. Actually, March was down to 3.47. It actually come down from where it was at the end of last year. When you advertise in the standard issuance fees involved in something like that, that adds about another 1.15%. So your 6-month all-in average they're showing right now is 4.76% is what you'd be borrowing money at. Bank qualified financing is something you've heard us talk about before. You got to do a bank loan. Traditionally, banks have been in that $20 million cap. They don't generally exceed that. Sometimes they have to have participatory partners. We are now seeing, at least over the past 6 to 8 months, bank qualified financing being willing to stretch in the 40 million range, only because of the parity level with municipal bond rates and tax exempt financing makes it worthwhile for them to take that security on and to be able to do that. I can't begin to tell you tonight whether if the city wanted to explore financing this plan or looking at it now, whether this is a bank qualified financing, whether it's a public offering, private offering, or even a limited public offering. I can tell you another matter that is outside of any of these areas. The limited public financing offers coming in right now, looking at about 5%. So the discussion that we had, and I think you just saw from our table, while the city, has a healthy amount of outstanding debt, it also has 99% unallocated or a debt or a ratio available for spend on our non-capital funds. So where we stand right now, we are financially healthy. We do not, everybody says, what's your bond rate? That's the first thing. City's never gone with public bond. I want to be clear. I'm not necessarily proposing you do that here. But what we know is this plant is going to cost us ballpark $40 million. And that's estimates today. We know what happened on the other plant where it was $15 million. By the time we got done with design, it was $30 million. So the discussion that I've talked to bond counsel about, just because they do this all over the state, it's not necessarily a run on the public financing market, but they are seeing more and more and more local governments trying to get their financing structures in place over the next 6 months before the end of this fiscal year, so they can factor it in as part of their budget, and so they can try to shop lenders. Historically, these bond rates and the public finance rates that you'll get from a bank for tax exempt financing trail the public market that you see that what you've got to borrow for a house, a car, 12 to 18 months. And if you look back where we were 12 months ago, look at where interest rates are, look at the jump. That's expected to continue. So we know we're designing it. I don't know what track we're on. It is a very fair bet, like all financing, that a lender, whether it's a private underwriting institution, or a bond issuer, or private, or bank qualified, is to say you spend your money first. And Sarah, we're sitting $10 to $11 million in capacity fees available at this point. So we're sitting on about $11 million in capacity fees. You take that off of your 40 or 35 million, you're down to the 24 to $29 million range, and you're really in a sweet spot of bank qualified financing. It is, I'm not going to say it's my recommendation, but I guess it's what I'm bringing to you is we don't know where the state's budget's going to be next year. We know we have opportunities to apply for Triumph. We know we have opportunities to apply for these different things. Triumph has been very reluctant to fund wastewater treatment. We know that if you were to explore partnership opportunities, that's still no guarantee, and state budget this year's not going to have it, so we're looking at June of next year. And so after we've had these conversations, we knew we didn't get anything allocated this year. The question was, well, what do we do? And so when Mark and I spoke about this, he asked me, well, what are you seeing elsewhere? I called Brian Miller, talked to Jolinda about our options there. He's been bond counsel for the city now for 40 plus years. talked to them at length about it, and they said, look, it may not be a bond issuance, it may be a bank issuance, but if you're serious about doing this, you may want to start exploring it now. And more importantly, you may want to see if rates are favorable. Is it to your advantage to lock in rates or look at locking in rates on a financing facility, even though you're going to spend your own money up front for the first part of this project to secure an interest rate to cover what you think you're going to need? Cost may keep going up for construction. And I'm not going to tell, look, no one can predict where the interest rates in this country go. We were at historic lows. Certainly for probably most people in this room's lifetime, historic lows. You're either going to bet they're going to go back to that level, they're going to go up, or over the 30-year average, they're going to keep trading in parity with where they are right now. That's why you see a lot of entities right now trying to establish these positions. Of course, financing institutions like it because we're a relatively safe bet. The downside, I will say, if you do public financing outside of RD or do a private bank loan, is in the future, rural development may look at you and say, well, you demonstrated capacity to borrow privately. That's why we've never gone to a full public bond offering, because rural development has helped us so much. That's a risk that sometimes you have to take. But so what we're looking for is, one, a discussion, and two, as part of that discussion, if you're so willing, would you provide direction for staff to explore what your financing options are, bring you back options? Obviously, there would have to be public procurements for any debt issuances or things of that nature. We'd have to publicly procure any type of interest rate bids that we do for financing institutions. But the concern for us is you got to start looking at this in your budget process. And if you're going to budget it, I think the slide up there was very telling. They compared it. I'm not going to pick on the city of Defuniak whatsoever, but they gave you a comparison. You had almost twice the long-term debt, but your annual expenditures are roughly half. And the advice that I can tell you that I've heard through 2 different seminars I've been at earlier this year that I've sat through has been to be very cautious about the pay-as-you-go model for financing. Or not for finance, or pay-as-you-go model for funding infrastructure. The problem with it is, while people are shying away, as rates increase, you're going to have issues with getting the financing you need in the future. But 2, if the cost keeps going up and you try to piecemeal these projects, you're ultimately going to have to pass that rate on to your consumer, because you're going to have to find ways to generate more revenue year over year over year. By taking out financing and setting a fixed term, as we've done, and Sarah knows, we know what our payments are. And so what's that going to look like? I'll tell you, certainly if we do a full public offering, we're probably need to bring a financial consultant in to assist with that outside of your current team, and bond council. It's got to be even bigger. If it's bank qualified, it may be easier. What we're really looking for, if the council's agreeable, is approving staff to explore these options and bring you a couple of options back for you to consider, to see what it would look like, and to see if we're able to do this, how much can we fast track some of this project. Big point that I want Mark to talk about with you is the type of plant we're discussing is a very unique type of plant, and that's the other reason why I'm not so sure that waiting for USDA or being worried about USDA's opinion about this is going to be important. Mark, do you want to touch on what you talked to engineers about?
I was waiting for my chance. So, with sewer plants, there's Fords and Chevrolets and different designs. So this air mod system is the one that is specifically built and designed. So if we built a 1.0, somehow they design it where you basically, they only have to deal with one wall, and then you can add on. So we could grow into the headworks. Because of the bidding, they're the only ones that make air mods. So USDA, none of the state agencies, you can't competitively bid it. So we're going to be paying for the plant part. The headworks and all the other pieces parts, we can go out with our hat in our hand and ask about those. But for sure, we're going to, and from the other perspective,
EPA and RD money, in other words, because it is sole source procurement, will not meet the no bid competitive Code of Federal Regulation requirement. The second point, what I said, may not be a big concern to worry about RD saying you have private financing. We did have private financing RD for something you couldn't have funded. That is a distinction that we can always raise, and this would have been, we chose to do this because it was a non-fundable project.
Councilman Ferris?
You know, I do agree, we've got to be proactive, and we've got to be willing to step out and get out of our comfort zone, because our city's growing. And if we end up of just keep waiting on the state or waiting on this one for funds, we may never get it. And we're gonna keep falling behind. And we've got to have this really today to be able to stay up with the growth that's coming. You know, everybody talks about the infrastructure. And I think we've got to make a decision and get out of our comfort zone and be willing to step out.
Councilwoman Brandon?
I agree with you, Councilman Ferris, because, you know, I've kind of seen it, I've been here for a long time, and I saw us get really far behind at one point, and we had to play catch-up really hard and fast, and we don't need to get in that position again, because there's so many more people here now and so many more coming, that if we don't go ahead and start doing something right now, we will have to shut everything down. We'll have to stop, you know.
3 years behind.
You know, yeah, I mean,
we
I
can
think we're
only control so much.
already.
We can't control this, you know, state roads and all that, but we can control, you know, we can control the city, so.
Yeah.
I agree. Do we need to, we don't have to do anything.
I'd ask, while it is direction, because it is something we don't typically always do, I would ask for the council to give us a motion to approve staff to pursue financing options for the Bulldog Road wastewater treatment plant.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Sarah, is anything you want to add on this conversation?
No, not at this point.
She'll have a lot more to add later, but I want to go ahead, and if she wanted to get any of it out of her system tonight, we'd go ahead and let her get a little out.
Nothing at this point.
Motion's been made and seconded to pursue
Financing options.
financing options. Any other discussion? Any public comment? Councilwoman Hafner?
Aye.
Councilman Day?
Aye.
Councilman Ferris?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Dickey?
Aye.
Motion carried.
That's all I have, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Dickey?
I just wanted to bring to the council the minutes from the Oakland Walton Transportation Planning Organization. Really nothing new. We had talked about earlier. Action item 1 was their Destin crossover. We're looking at 2045 planning. So there is, in our area, I'll go J.W. Hollington Connector Road was put on the needs assessment. There's a MAC bio to Sandestin Lane Connector Road, and Freeport Waterfront Improvements was also put on there. So that's just for your information. You can read through the others. There was a discussion about the expenditure of some Emerald Coast funds for a workshop that was in February at Sandestin. So you can see the other things for the presentation. There was Smart Region Master Plan presentation and the Florida Greenway Trails. I'll let you look at those. Also, the second document I gave you was the TPO held 2 public hearings, public meetings. One was in Fort Walton Beach at the public library, and that pretty much pertains to the first 14 questions you can read through. And the second was out at Freeport Community Center, and 15 through 18 pretty much are this area. So if you have any questions, please.
Yeah, I like
keep
number
me.
16.
Well, we'll see where that, we'll see where
It's like
that.
it's been that for
Again, do you
years,
see,
like no
do you see
update.
the number on the front, 2045?
Yeah.
But
We'll get there.
hopefully we'll get there before 2045.
We could start digging that road ourselves and use them, I guess.
Wow.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Any questions? Councilman Ferris?
Yes, Mayor and Council. I talked with Janie Griffith, and I told her I'd bring this before the council. The Walton County Fair, come this October, will be celebrating their 100th birthday. They are the longest continuous running fair in the state of Florida. They do not receive any funding from the county. They get it from individuals. What they're trying to do right now is, with this being the 100th birthday, is the city of Paxton, the city of Defuniak made a contribution, and the money that they're trying to raise is going to go to fixing up the front of the fair, where it's in bad shape. And they're wanting to try to have it looking good. And what they've asked, and I told them I'd bring it before the council, I talked with Sarah to see if there was money there that we could make a contribution. You can be bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. She said that there was $1,000 if we wanted to give that we could give. It would be a platinum, and it tells you what they'll do. They'll also do a little article about the city of Freeport, the council, and everything. You don't have to give the $1,000, but I wanted to see what the council thought about making a contribution to help with the 100th birthday of the Walton County Fair, where they can get the building looking good.
Do you know what the other cities gave? Maybe we could beat them. I'm just kidding.
No, I didn't ask. I doubt, well, I would like to give the 1,000.
I'm fine with
I
that.
think we would outbeat the other cities.
I'm
Okay,
fine with that.
we're good.
Everyone else
I'm good.
is.
You'll make a motion?
I'll make the motion to give $1,000 to be the platinum level.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any public comment?
Is that $1,000 from each of you?
From you.
From the city.
Councilwoman Hafner?
Aye.
Councilman Day? Councilman Ferris?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brennan? And Councilman Dickey?
Aye.
And I'm assuming that the name of the authorized person is going to be the mayor
Yes.
for
Yes.
this form?
Yes.
Okay. Any public comment for tonight? If not, meeting is adjourned.